Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. Today's show a little bit different. I'm going to be doing a show on what I call some of my favorite go-to tracks. So what is that? I'm not going particularly deep. These are all major artists, bands you've heard of, except in one occasion probably. Bands you're really familiar with. But I'm going to be telling you basically maybe they're not my all-time favorite songs, but for some reason these are my go-to tracks. I've heard these songs 1,000 times, and I still play them all the time, and they just became part of my DNA. So you may not know some of these songs because some of them may be a little bit deep, but you certainly know the acts. If you want to get into these acts, these are great places to go. Or maybe you're not familiar with these songs, you need to hear them because I'm telling you, I personally guarantee these songs you will love. They will make you happier. Um, they will expand your musical horizons, and you'll be really glad that you know these songs if you don't know them already. So let's start in no particular order. Let's start with this one. This is the Kinks. I have a couple of. I did a video on the Kinks already. I go through their discography. They're either my second or third favorite band. They go back and forth between them and the Who. But I love the Kinks. I own everything they've done. This was the first Kinks album that I ever owned called Everybody's in Showbiz. Here's a couple of different versions of it. It's a half studio, half live album. But basically, the title track, although it's called Celluloid Heroes. Everybody's in showbiz, everybody's a star. One of the first songs I ever heard from the Kinks way back in the mid 70s. I fell in love with the song and I fell in love with this album. And to this day, Celluloid Heroes is part of my DNA. It is the most incredible song. You need to hear it if you never did. But basically, Ray Davies writes about going down Hollywood Boulevard and discussing the different stars and their lives. Marilyn Monroe, she should have been made of steel, but she was only made of flesh and blood. Um, but it ends. He talks about that everybody's in showbiz, everybody's a star. Um, One line is, "I wish my life was a nonstop Hollywood movie show, a fantasy world of celluloid villains and heroes, because in celluloid heroes, they never feel any pain and they never really die." Really profound lyrics, an incredible song. If you don't know the song Celluloid Heroes, you need to hear it. Check it out on YouTube or Spotify. Definitely one of my go-to Kinks songs and go-to songs of all time. Let's continue. David Bowie, one of the all-time greatest artists. I have all of his albums. Love David Bowie. I think I did a video on his discography as well, or some of my favorite go-to tracks. But on this album, Aladdin Sane, the album he did after Ziggy Stardust. Now, Ziggy Stardust is a perfect album. This album's pretty close to a perfect album as well. But there's a track buried at the end, right there, called Lady Grinning Soul. And it's a song he wrote about Claudia Lanier, who's a famous African American background singer. Mick Jagger had a relationship with her. She helped out on Brown Sugar, apparently, as being somebody that Mick Jagger was referencing in that song. How come you dance so good? How come you taste so good? Well, Bowie wrote Lady Grinning Soul about her. David Bowie, besides being, I think, a true musical genius, always surrounded himself with amazing musicians and expanded his sound and changed his sound. And one of my favorite musicians he worked with forever is Mike Garson, the piano player. He just adds like these really offbeat, kind of weird piano parts that are very haunting. No more so than in Lady Grinning Soul. It is a Mike Garson tour de force. It's a piano is moody and haunting and melodic, and it sticks with you, and it's the best part of this song. And it's a track that I just never get tired of hearing. So if you never heard Lady Grinning Soul, you need to hear it, and you're going to hear Mike Garson on piano taking David Bowie to great lengths. That is what he always did. Great track from that album. Now, I'm kind of a fan of Blondie. I think they're a truly great New York band. They they expand their sounds in lots of different ways. On this album, Eat to the Beat, it's actually kind of a story. I used to play the drums, still do, but I used to play in bands and played in like local clubs. And I played in a band in high school back in the day, in the mid '80s, and we used to cover a lot of Blondie songs. And I had to learn this album. When I first heard this album, I was blown away. Amazing production by Mike Chapman. But there's a song on here called Shayla. Oh my God. It's haunting. It's powerful. Clem Burke is the drummer. He's a phenomenal drummer, a big part of the Blondie sound, and he's all over that just thundering production. And Debbie Harry's vocals are just amazing. They did a video of every song on this album, so you could actually check it out on YouTube and check out Shayla. What an amazing song. Love that one. Go to Blondie song. I did a video ranking the albums of Dire Straits. I said they're one of the greatest bands of all time, even though they have a relatively small discography, and they are. And this is their third album, Making Movies, a damn near perfect album. Certainly the first side is incredible. But the opening track is a song called Tunnel of Love. It's an extended piece, almost progressive rock-like. Opens up with the carousel waltz, and the band kicks in, and it's a rocking tune at first, but then it expands, and it slows down, and it gets moody, and Mark Knopfler is talking about his childhood when he was a child in England and going to an amusement park, the Spanish City, it's called. And actually, if you go to the Spanish City now, apparently they engraved in stone some of the lyrics to this song. But the end of the song, it builds up, and it's got piano flourishes, and it's just expansive. You got to check out Tunnel Love. I mean, I think Sultans of Swing is the greatest song they ever did, but Tunnel Love is my go-to track. I never get sick of hearing it. It is just an expansive, incredible piece, and you need to hear this song and play it out because it changes moods. It's an expanded song. Incredible. Tunnel of Love, Dire Straits. I mentioned The Who earlier. Now, I just recently did a video of The Who talking about one of the greatest album runs of all time, and this album was not mentioned in there because this album, The Who by Numbers, which came out in '75, is a very good record, but it's certainly not a perfect classic like Tommy and Quadrophenia and Who's Next and Live at Leeds and Sellout. But it's still a really strong record. But there's a song on this album that's relatively unknown. The band has never done it live, and it's called How Many Friends. Really powerful track, a little bit different. Daltrey sings in a really high register, but he pulls it off, and he's just saying, how many friends have I really got? Can count them on one hand. How many friends have I really got? Dun, 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 dun. Great Lost Who track. One of my go-to favorites from this band. Let's continue. You know, Fleetwood Mac is obviously a hugely successful band, and I'm a big fan of Fleetwood Mac from the Peter Green years. I have all of those albums, and the middle period with Bob Welch and other people in the band like that stuff as well. But obviously, their prime, most commercial stuff is Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, and those albums are phenomenal. The White Fleetwood Mac album, and Rumors, and Tusk, and I love Tusk. I still listen to that. And Mirage. Just a great, great super band. They put out a Green Greatest Hits album. This is the expanded, very best of Fleetwood Mac. There's a track on there that I feel is kind of lost, but man, it's become my go-to Fleetwood Mac song, and it's called As Long As You Follow. Lindsey Buckingham plays like this descending, tasty guitar lick. Never get tired of hearing it. It's a Christine McVie song. She sings it beautifully, but it's powerful. It's got balls, but this descending guitar lick that Lindsey Buckingham does just takes it to another level. You need to hear As Long As You Follow if you never have, because it's become my go-to Fleetwood Mac track. Let's continue. Bob Dylan. I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan. I have all of his albums. I did a video showing all, I think at that time, 78 Bob Dylan albums I have. Now it's more. I love his Christian trilogy, Slow Train Coming and Saved and In Shadow of Love, but the album he put out after that is Infidels. His newest bootleg series covers that period of time, and it's amazing stuff. But Infidels is an incredible, incredible album. I just love it. Mark Knopfler's all over this thing, and Mick Taylor from the Stones is on this thing as well. And there's a song on there called "Sweetheart Like You." Um, just such a beautiful track, great lyrics, and there's a great lyric in there that I always think of, and it goes, "Steal a little and they throw you in jail, steal a lot and they make you king." Um, Man, great stuff. But most importantly, just a phenomenal song. Now, cool thing is, if you go on YouTube and you look up the video of "Sweetheart Like You," the person who is mimicking the lead guitar or the guitar work in there is a woman named Carla Olson. I am a huge fan of Carla Olson. She's pretty much unknown, but she was once in a band called the Textones that had actually Kathy Valentine in it, who went on to form the Go Go's. She came from the Textones. They were like, she's from, Carla Olsen's from Texas, but they were a California band. They never really, really made it. But she's a really good artist, and I'm gonna do one day. I'm gonna do a video on Carla Olsen. But Karla Olsen got together at some points with Gene Clark. Gene Clark, of course, was the lead singer of the Byrds. And after the Byrds were gone, Gene Clark kind of floundered. He put out a couple of solo records that are really well respected. One is called No Other, and this one is White Light. He's a really tremendous artist that just didn't really have much success as a solo artist. But he did an album with Karla Olsen called "So Rebellious a Lover." It's a very much an acoustic kind of record, but there's still a band with it, and it's just a killer album. But on this album, there's different versions of it. The later version has it as a bonus track. Originally, on this collection from the Textones, they were doing a demo, and I spoke to Karla Olsen about this. They were doing a demo for Gene Clark so he can get a record deal, and they did a song called "Jokers Are Wild." This has become one of my favorite songs of all time by any artist. I play it all the time for years. My wife sings it. Jokers are wild. You gotta hear it. It's got like a 12-string kind of country rock feel. It's short. It's catchy. And it's only like a demo, is my understanding. It's never really been on a regular album. Jokers Are Wild by the Textones and Gene Clark. There is a video of it on YouTube. If you like 12-string guitars and a country rock sound, you will love Jokers Are Wild. U2, obviously one of the greatest bands of all time. I think they're kind of a unique band because their discography is amazing, and they're one of the few bands that I could think of that as they got older, they just never dipped, man. Their albums are just incredible. And they may be, the last couple of maybe less successful commercially than they previously had been, but it's not because of quality, man. They are still a killer band. This is the album Achtung Baby. This is a deluxe edition of it. But I think this is their strongest album, song for song. I think it's just an incredible album. But I think most of their albums are pretty incredible. But on this album, I think they put out one of the greatest songs of all time by anybody. I've been quoted from some of my friends as saying, if I had to pick the two greatest songs of all time, I normally would pick the Stones' "Gimme Shelter" and the song from this album, which is "One." You know it. It's not really a deep track, but it doesn't get as much play as I would think on the radio. And it's just the most perfect, beautiful, gorgeous song. I could never get sick of hearing "One" by U2. And we're going to do two more songs. Bruce Springsteen, another incredible artist. He's an artist with a capital A like U2. I don't love everything Springsteen does, but I have everything that Springsteen does. When he split up the E Street Band and he put out Human Touch and Lucky Town, good records, not phenomenal. If they combined them into one, it would have been, I think, a true masterpiece. But on Lucky Town, my favorite Springsteen song is on it of any album that he's ever done. I think it's the most incredible song, and it's "If I Should Fall Behind." There's a lot of different versions of it. He plays it, but he changes it up. the version on this, If I Should Fall Behind, and also on the Unplugged live album, is just incredible. Anybody who's getting married, it should be played at every wedding. In fact, I got to tell my friend I'm going to his daughter's wedding. If I Should Fall Behind is just incredible. Basically saying that life's got its ups and downs and its challenges, and if you're my age, you've been through it, and if you aren't, you will go through it. And if you're lucky enough to fall in love with somebody and be that couple, you're going to face a lot of challenges. But if I should fall behind, stick with me. Um, phenomenal, phenomenal song from Bruce Springsteen. And last but not least, my favorite band of all time, the Rolling Stones. Hard to pick one song, but their go to track for me is from 1974, the It's Only Rock and Roll album. It is a masterpiece called Time Waits for No One. I have never gotten sick of playing that. When I just throw that thing on all the time to this day. It is over 6 minutes long. You got to absorb that. It is an amazing production from Mick and Keith because it was the first album they produced as the Glimmer Twins, which is Mick and Keith together. Some people said it's kind of Santana-like. I don't think so. It's just that it's an expanded song. It's 6 minutes. Starts off with Charlie Watts just on rim shots, and it builds up to the most gorgeous guitar playing that you'll ever hear in a Rolling Stones track or pretty much anywhere. Mick Taylor was the lead guitarist at that time. The only time the Stones really had a phenomenal lead guitar player. And my God, he just took them to another level. And this album is overshadowed and overlooked and kind of forgotten because it really didn't have a great single, except for the title track, which is not really a great single. But Time Waits for No One is an amazing track. Should be played on the radio all the time, but it's never played, maybe because it's just a little bit too long. It's a little bit progressive for the Stones, but it's got the most beautiful melodic guitar lines. And just when you think it fades out, it builds up at the end, and some orchestration comes in, and Nicky Hopkins' piano brings it home, and then it fades down to Charlie Watts' beautiful drum work again. A masterpiece. It's Only Rock and Roll, the album. Time Waits for No One, the track. So there are some deeper cuts, my go-to tracks, and hopefully I'll turn you on to some great music. This is not background music. You know, music is supposed to be a give and take. When you're in the mood, put these songs on, crank them up, and give them a really good listen. And I'm telling you, they're going to put a smile on your face, and you're going to say, God, I'm so glad that I've heard these songs. They'll change your life in a musical way. Thanks for tuning in. It's the Alan Rosenberg Show. Please hit subscribe if you like it. Check out some of my other videos because I've done videos now where I've ranked albums by some of these artists and discussed albums in depth. But I'm here to turn you on to great music that you may not know. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you will love these tracks. Thanks so much. Take care.